Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal said on Monday that 1,000 rupees per month would be transferred into the accounts of all women in Punjab if his party, the Aam Aadmi Party, was voted to power in the 2022 Assembly elections. Along with his bold promises, he launched an attack on the current Chief Minister, calling him a fake Kejriwal.
ईमानदारी दी मिसाल अरविंद केजरीवाल जी नूं मैं स्टेज उत्ते सदा दिंदी है.
The Delhi Chief Minister launched his Punjab campaign banking on his name.
केजरीवाल जो कहता है वो करता है. मैं हवा में बात नहीं करता.
He has already promised up to 300 units of free electricity, 24-hour running water supply and free medicines alongside free medical treatment. The Aam Aadmi Party chief announced what he called Kejriwal's 3 guarantees for women and attacked the chief minister for copying him.
18 साल से ऊपर की हर महिला को हर महीने 1,000 रुपए उसके अकाउंट में हम डलवाया करेंगे. एक बेटी है, एक बहू है, एक सास है, तो तीनों के अकाउंट में 1,000 रुपए आएंगे. मैंने कहा कि हमारी सरकार बनेगी, हम 15,000 मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाएंगे. हमने दिल्ली में भी मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाए. उस नकली केजरीवाल ने कहा मैं भी मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाऊंगा.
Both chief ministers reached out to the auto rickshaw unions on the same day, just hours apart.
पहला रिक्शे ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ. ਮੇਰੇ ਬਾਪੂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਟੈਂਟ ਸਟੋਰ ਸੀ. ਅਸੀਂ ਰਿਕਸ਼ਾ ਮੈਂ ਬੜਾ ਚਲਾਇਆ. ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਜਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਚਲਾਨ ਹੋਏ ਵੇ ਹੈ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ 50,000 ਕਰਿਆ ਵਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ 20,000 ਕਰਿਆ ਵਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ 10,000 ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਲੀਕ ਮਾਰਤੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਪਰ.
The Malwa region holds a politically significant place in Punjab politics with 69 out of the 117 seats. The Aam Aadmi Party too boasts of a strong presence here. In Ludhiana with Ashwini Mehra, Shanakshi Chakravarti, NDTV.
Arvind Kejriwal and his party colleagues also had dinner at one auto driver's house in Punjab. Now, his outreach to auto drivers has been a hugely winning strategy in Delhi. He told his audience, I'm like your brother, come to me for anything, even if your auto breaks down. And let's go across to my colleague Sharad Sharma, who spoke with the Delhi Chief Minister and AAP Chief.
सर, एक चीज़ पूछना चाहूँगा, आप पंजाब के दौरे पर हैं, मुख्यमंत्री हैं पंजाब के, वो ये कह रहे हैं जो आपने योजना लॉन्च करी है महिलाओं के लिए, वो कह रहे हैं कि महिलाएं जो हैं वो अपना हक चाहती हैं जो कांग्रेस उनको दिलवा रही है, वो मुफ्त की चीज़ें नहीं चाहती हैं, वो ये कह रहे हैं.
अगर उन्होंने ऐसा कहा है तो ये दुख की बात है. मैंने क्या बोला है? मैंने ये बोला है कि हमारी सरकार बनेगी तो हर महिला को 18 साल से ऊपर की हर महिला को हर महीने 1,000 रुपए उसके अकाउंट में डलवाएंगे. तो वो इसका क्यों विरोध कर रहे हैं? उन्हें तो खुश होना चाहिए.
इससे पहले ही वो बात बोल रहे हैं, मतलब इस पर्टिकुलर इस पे नहीं.
सारी महिलाएं हैं, आप सबसे पूछ लीजिए. आज मैंने देखा टीवी चैनल सड़क पे महिलाओं से पूछ रहे थे, सारी महिलाएं इतनी खुश हैं कि भाई चलो हमें 1,000 रुपए महीना मिल जाएंगे. अब जैसे कोई गृहिणी होती है, यही गृहिणी है, अगर इनको 1,000 रुपए महीना मिलेगा तो ये अपने लिए 100 चीजें ला सकती है, बच्चों के लिए कुछ कुछ ला सकती है. एक कॉलेज जाने वाली बच्ची है, उसको उसकी कॉलेज की शिक्षा अच्छी मिल सकती है अगर 1,000 रुपए महीना मिलेगा. तो इसका तो स्वागत करना चाहिए. वो पता नहीं क्यों विरोध कर रहे हैं, कांग्रेस क्यों विरोध कर रही है, अकाली दल क्यों विरोध कर रहा है.
गेम चेंजर हो सकता है आपकी ये योजना जो है, उसके पैसा बहुत चाहिएगा. मैं देख रहा था करीब 1,000 करोड़ में लगता है 1 महीने का चाहिए होगा.
मेरा अपना अनुमान है 8 से 10,000 करोड़ के करीब जरूरत पड़ेगी. और पंजाब का बजट 2 लाख करोड़ रुपए के करीब है. इतना तो हम अपनी बहनों को दे ही सकते हैं.
Thousands of farmers have held a rally in Lucknow, the capital of Uttar Pradesh, that will see crucial state polls in less than 6 months, days after the Prime Minister announced the government's intent to roll back the contentious farm laws. Now, while a decision on the future of the protest will be taken by top farmer leaders later this week, those who attended the rally were unanimous in talking about many more demands, especially the law to ensure minimum support price for all crops. This as the centre has indicated that it is looking at one comprehensive bill which will repeal all 3 contentious farm laws. At the same time, it is weighing options about what to do on minimum support prices, whether this is in fact going to be in the form of guidelines or take a statutory form.
Thousands of farmers at this Lucknow Mahapanchayat, organized by the Sanyukt Kisan Morcha, days after Prime Minister Modi's farm laws repeal announcement, with only one resolve: Farmers from across Uttar Pradesh, Haryana and Punjab came to the Lucknow Mahapanchayat while no decision on the future of the movement was taken. At the same time, the presence of so many people here in Uttar Pradesh's capital definitely sent out a message to the government that the farmers' protest is still very much on. A decision on the protest is likely this Saturday when all top farmer leaders meet. But in Lucknow, they asked that other demands be met, including a law that guarantees MSP or a fair price for produce. An action against MOS home Ajay Mishra, whose son is accused of the murder of farmers in UP's Lakhimpur.
MSP का सवाल है, कानूनी गारंटी उसको मिल जाए। इसमें ना छोटा किसान है ना बड़ा, किसने 10 क्विंटल पैदा करा, किसने 100 क्विंटल पैदा करा, उसका लाभ सीधा उसी को मिलेगा।
Top BJP leaders were 300 kilometers away from Lucknow in Gorakhpur, CM Adityanath's home turf, where party chief JP Nadda addressed booth-level workers, pitching the Modi government as farmer-friendly.
किसान आंदोलन की बात करते हैं और किसान के बारे में बात करते हैं। मित्रों, बहुत से किसान नेता के नाम पर जाने गए, लेकिन जो काम किसान के लिए किया वह काम मोदी जी के बराबर का किसी किसान नेता ने नहीं किया। इस बात को भी हमको समझना चाहिए।
But other top UP BJP leaders like Unnao MP Sakshi Maharaj threw jibes at farmer leaders.
बिल तो बनते रहते हैं, बिगड़ते रहते हैं, वापस आ जाएंगे, दोबारा बन जाएंगे, कोई देर नहीं लगती है। मोदी जी का हृदय से धन्यवाद करूंगा कि उन्होंने बहुत बड़े मन का, बड़े दिल का परिचय दिया।
Farmers in Lucknow also said they intend to go ahead with the proposed march to Parliament early next week. With Salim Khan in Gorakhpur and camera person Rajesh Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
The other big story, COVID-19 vaccine stocks available with states has nearly doubled this month as per government data. The country's top group on immunization is likely to meet this week to discuss giving an additional dose or a third dose. This is what sources have told NDTV. The high stock of vaccines is likely to come in handy for these additional doses, even as we said, stocks of private hospitals are set to expire. There are 40 to 50 lakh such doses with private hospitals, which are all set to expire over the next 4 months, according to the DG, the Association of Healthcare Providers in India. Doctors, meanwhile, are urging that booster shots be administered to the vulnerable. They're saying that the elderly in particular need this the most.
While the vaccine availability has nearly doubled, the government is still undecided on administering the third dose or the additional dose. The data reveals that the vaccine availability has nearly doubled in the month of November. As per the data, the average vaccine availability in the third week of October was somewhere around 10.85 crore, whereas it has nearly doubled to almost 22 crore in the third week of November. This when the average vaccination rate is somewhere around 65 lakh in the third week of November. This data is very important in the context of rising demand for the additional dose or the booster dose. Government sources have told NDTV that the National Expert Group on COVID vaccination is likely to meet this week, and in this particular meeting, the expert group will discuss the need for additional dose or the third dose. Sources have also added that the committee will discuss the need for administering the additional dose or the third dose for the immunocompromised people. Sources, however, say that any decision on administering the third dose or the additional dose will be purely based on science and will not be based on mere excess availability of vaccines. Sources, however, clarify that the focus as on date remains on vaccinating the adult population as per the target. Sources have also added that the National Technical Advisory Committee is also expected to meet in 2 weeks to formulate and to finalize a comprehensive policy for the additional dose.
Now, this decision can probably not come a minute too soon. The number of senior citizens who are dying due to COVID is back to the same percentage as it was during the first wave of the pandemic, is what a study in Mumbai has shown. Now, while this does not mean a spike in the number of deaths, it shows that senior citizens and those with comorbidities cannot let their guards down at all. Now, in January, the share of the elderly in COVID deaths was about about 75.7%. In February, this went up to 84%. In March, 80%. That's when vaccines started for the 60 plus. And April, May, June, August all saw that share of elderly deaths in the COVID toll at around 65% or so. But in September, that's jumped up again to 79%. That's 6 months to the first vaccine. And in October, that's climbed up a little further. This according to Mumbai's civic body data.
63-year-old Sharat Chandra Shinoy died of COVID in October in spite of being fully vaccinated. His brother, a practicing senior family physician, says the time to consider booster shots for the elderly has come.
I appeal to the task force also to think for the second booster dose for the COVID vaccination for the comorbid and senior people.
The Mumbai Corporation says that while deaths have gone down significantly amongst all segments of the population, senior citizens still remain more vulnerable. The BMC is consulting the state task force on what can be done to protect senior citizens with comorbidities. Mumbai Corporation says a decision on booster shots will have to come from the centre.
Comorbid status of the persons, senior citizens, that may be added factor for contributing more in terms of more in numbers and more in percentage. We have requested formally to the task force members that they should understand, they should study this thing, and they should come out with some suggestions, some solutions, so that we can put forth before the Government of India and the Government of Maharashtra for coming out with the policies.
Doctors on the state's COVID task force say senior citizens, especially those with comorbidities, will remain highly susceptible to COVID and they will have to strictly follow COVID protocols.
Absolute number of deaths have significantly come down. The percentage of these adult elderly population still remains high. And one of the main reasons for that is the amount of comorbidities they have.
Even though the total amount of case fatalities last reported was about 0.8%. We know that the two biggest group of people who can get infected or at higher risk are the elderly and those people who are obese.
For those who have comorbidities and are on immunosuppressant medicines, remaining vigilant is the only way to stay safe, because experts have made it clear that COVID is here to stay and COVID fatalities in the future is likely to come from this category of citizens. In Mumbai with camera person Praveen Ji Rohit, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Time for a very quick break. Up next, NDTV at the International Emmy Awards in New York on the red carpet with Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Veer Das. Welcome back. On to news from the world of arts and entertainment and an NDTV special from the International Emmy Awards in New York, where my colleague Rohit Khilnani was on the red carpet with Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Veer Das.
We are in New York. This is the red carpet of the International Emmy Awards, and we have two Indian nominees. That's Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Veer Das. They were right here on the red carpet. I spoke to both these talented gentlemen. Take a look at what they had to say. Joining me again on NDTV is Veer Das. Good to see you here on the red carpet.
Good to see you as well.
Making us very proud. We felt really good when they announced the Indian nominees. That's you and Nawaz bhai. Are you all feeling that you're representing the country?
I'm extremely excited as a fanboy to be here with Nawaz bhai.
Right.
I've taken many selfies and he's been very patient with me. And I'm just happy to be here for my country. It's an honor.
And you both like opposites. He's a man of few words and you obviously do all the talking.
India's most serious man, India's least serious man, all in a frame together. So who knew that would happen at the end?
There's a very interesting story about your outfit.
Yes.
What is that?
I didn't want to wear a fancy designer for the Emmys. So I outsourced it on Instagram. just to say if anyone was struggling or starting a new label, this is a Pradeep Bhatt creation. He's a boy from Uttarakhand who's in 3rd year of NIFT. And he designed this. It's the first thing he's ever designed for the public. And I'm happy to take him to the Emmys just like I'm at the Emmys. So we're here together.
We does all the very best. Thank you. Joining me on the red carpet at the International Emmys is Nawazuddin Siddiqui. Nawaz bhai, it's so good to and so happy to see you here.
मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है. अभी लेट्स सी देखते हैं, शुरुआत होने वाली है.
नवाज भाई, ये आपका पहली बार तो नहीं है यहाँ पे, तो नर्वस तो नहीं होगे इतना?
नर्वस तो नहीं हूँ, बट ये है क्योंकि 2 साल पहले आया था मैं यहाँ पे, तो ट्रॉफी होल्ड तो की थी मैंने मैक माफिया के साथ. अभी लेट्स सी देखते हैं क्या होता है. बट अच्छी बात यह है कि मैं नॉमिनेट हुआ हूँ और एटलीस्ट सुधीर मिश्रा जी के काम को रिकॉग्नाइज किया जा रहा है. दैट्स वंडरफुल थिंग.
नवाज भाई, कितना चांस है, अगर आपको लगता है, आप ये सब सोचते हो कि इस बार मैंने ये पिक्चर बहुत अलग थी, शायद मौका मिले अवार्ड जीतने का, सोचते हो थोड़ा इस बारे में?
मैं सच बता रहा हूँ, मैं सोचता ही नहीं, इस बारे में नहीं सोचता. एक्सपेक्टेशन नहीं है मुझे बिल्कुल भी. बट मुझे खुशी इस बात की है कि जो मैं चुनाव कर रहा हूँ, जिन फिल्मों को चुन रहा हूँ, वो एटलीस्ट यहाँ तक तो आ रही हैं. वो आज नहीं तो कल हो जाएगा. वो तो अवार्ड की अगर बात है तो परसों हो जाएगा या 10 साल के बाद होगा. लेकिन अच्छी बात है कि आ रही हैं फिल्में.
बट एक चीज़ है, थोड़ा प्राउड हो गए कि इंडिया का रिप्रेजेंटेशन है आप लोग, आप और वीरदास.
हाँ, वो ऑफ कोर्स खुशी तो होती है, डेफिनेटली.
नवाज भाई, ऑल द बेस्ट. सो गुड टू सी ऑल. Thank you, Nawaz bhai. Good luck. There's also an elaborate interview about their work, which we'll telecast on Spotlight over the weekend. So stay tuned to NDTV for lots more.
Well, sadly, none of the Indian contenders actually won Emmys. Nawazuddin Siddiqui, Veerdas and Sushmita Sen-led Arya were the 3 contenders. None of them actually won. We will take a very quick break. Up next, heavy rain alert along the Tamil Nadu coast. We get you more details in a moment. You're watching Good Morning India. A big focus, the rain and flood fury across South India. Well, Bengaluru and Chennai are flooded as rain batters the southern states. Huge losses have been reported in Andhra Pradesh as well, with over 30 people now reported dead. The Met Department has now sounded a heavy rain alert along the Tamil Nadu coast, with heavy rainfall expected over the next 4 or 5 days. Excess reservoir water has also been released into Tamil Nadu after the catchment area of the Penna River in Andhra Pradesh caused a 140-year record flow. A cyclonic circulation is currently headed for the Tamil Nadu coast. November rain in Bengaluru has been 400 times above what is normal for this time of the year, and boats have become a familiar sight in India's Silicon Valley. Let's take a look at the kind of excess November rainfall we're talking about. Well, Bangalore has seen 428% of what's normal for this time of the year, with 223 millimeters of rainfall. Chennai 238%, Ernakulam 139%, Nellore 132% and Chittor 238% more than what's normal. Karnataka has received record-breaking rainfall. So far, 24 people have lost their lives because of the rain, and 5 lakh hectares of standing crops have also been damaged. Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai announced compensation of 1 lakh each to all those whose homes were destroyed by the rain. The NDRF is currently in North Bengaluru, still rescuing people stranded in an apartment.
Boats evacuating people in India's Silicon Valley, Bengaluru. This is towards the airport. The water level rose to 4 to 5 feet in this area. All the cars parked here were submerged.
It rained again very heavily last night, so because of that the water level has risen much higher than what it was on Friday. So there's no water or electricity in the house, so we decided to move out.
Almost 130 mm का पानी बरसा हुआ है यहाँ पे, so उसके वजह से जो पानी भरा हुआ है उसी का नतीजा ये है। और ऑलमोस्ट हमारे यहाँ 603 अपार्टमेंट है, 1,500 के ऊपर लोग रहते हैं यहाँ पे।
The rain caused waterlogging in many areas in the city late at night and continued till the morning. Relief workers worked hard to discharge the water but found it tough, as the apartment is allegedly built on a lake bed and their natural drainage now.
We are getting into the reports of whether they have deliberately made some buildings on the stormwater drains or on lake buffer area.
The rain has broken all its previous records. Here in Bengaluru, the municipal authorities tried their best to ensure that there is no waterlogging across the city, and they were successful to a great extent. But it was beyond their control to stop waterlogging in and around apartments built on the path of lakes. With camera person Kumar, Nihal Kidwai from Bengaluru for NDTV.
The south of the country has been hit by a virtual deluge of rain in the past couple of weeks as a depression over the Bay of Bengal recently crossed between the Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh coasts, causing heavy rainfall and subsequent flooding in all 4 south states. Let's take a look.
A boat rescues Vanitha and her 3 children after waters entered their home at Manali in North Chennai. Their neighborhood in knee-deep to waist-deep waters after 35,000 cusecs was reportedly let into river Kosastolayar from the Pundi reservoir, following rains and heavy discharge from neighbouring Andhra Pradesh's Chittoor district over the weekend. Many had left their homes.
Not even get milk for my children as well as food. We are facing so much of difficulty, and even the snakes are coming inside the house and so many insects. So that's why we are moving now to my mom's house.
Dr. Benjamin wades through waters to reach his patients.
And we have been suffering from here from since Saturday. It's full of MRB Nagar is full of with water, with rainwater, and people are not able to go out or do any work and all.
Dhanalakshmi's family had moved in 2 years ago. It's an approved layout, but the construction of stormwater drains is not complete yet.
Officials are telling that there is no way for water going out. They have to find out the water, and they should discuss with the local people in which way they have to get the drainage facilities, everything.
If they would have completed in the stipulated time, we wouldn't have faced this much of struggle this year.
The area is dotted with industries. Many worried about the setback they will suffer because of the flooding. The city has already received 66% more than the average rainfall, 54.5 centimeters versus 90.6. And with Met forecasting more rain, there is worry. Chennai Corporation says the discharge has been reduced and the waters would recede soon. A 5,000 crore project, they say, is connecting many new areas with the stormwater drains network. Even as the heart of Chennai breathes easy, it's a nightmare for this northern pocket. Residents are angry that even 6 years after the 2015 floods, there is no functional stormwater drains yet. And this will be a major challenge for the new DMK government, which has been blaming the AADMK regime for this mess. At the Manali New Town with Suresh, Sam Daniel, for NDTV.
Meanwhile, in Andhra Pradesh's Nellore, which has seen the worst floods in 140 years, there's been no fresh rain in the last couple of days, so no more threat of flooding, but the focus has now shifted on relief work.
Huge relief for 30 passengers rescued from a private bus that got trapped in flood waters in Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh on Monday. Andhra Pradesh got its highest ever northeast monsoon this season, some 39% above normal. But it is unprecedented rains in the usually drought-prone Rayalaseema districts of Anantapur and Kadapa that caused the maximum damage. Inhuman lives lost, breaking road links, cutting off several towns and villages. This bridge in Kadapa district collapsed on Sunday, unable to take the force of flood waters, snapping the road link with Anantapur. Officials say Nellore barrage got a record 140-year high inflows from River Penna that in fact broke National Highway 16 that connects Chennai with Vijayawada and Kolkata. The link has been temporarily resumed, and yet 35,000 people are still in 90 relief camps as the waters are receding slowly. With inputs from Anantapur, Kadapa, Chittoor and Nellore, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.
Well, joining us on Good Morning India this morning, Mahesh Palawat, Vice President, Met and Climate Change at SkyMet Weather. We're also being joined by G. Sundarajan, climate activist and environmentalist. Mahesh Palawat, let me begin with you actually. What is the forecast now for Tamil Nadu? I believe Chennai is seeing a bit of sunshine this morning, which is going to come as a welcome relief, but more heavy rain in store?
Yes, this relief is short-lived and a fresh low-pressure area is likely to form over Bay of Bengal and it is heading towards North Tamil Nadu coast. So, by 25th of November, we expect that rain activities will once again intensify over northern parts of Tamil Nadu like Tiruvallur, Chingalpet, Chennai, Ranipet, all these areas, and gradually southern parts of coastal Andhra Pradesh will also get heavy to very heavy rain, and these rain activities are expected to continue until November 28th. Okay. And focus will be on coastal areas of Andhra Pradesh between 27, 28 or 29th of November. And during that time, from Kakinada to Nellore or Tirupati, rain activities will be very heavy. But this particular weather system is not heading inside, or you could say interior part. So South Interior Karnataka, particularly Bengaluru, Mysore, okay, all these areas will be safe and rain activities will be light or moderate over those areas. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying the coastal areas specifically are going to get affected yet again in the course of the next 4 or 5 days. G. Sundarajan, we've already seen such heavy rainfall. The visuals that we saw from, for instance, from Tirupati and Tirumala were absolutely shocking. Bengaluru, boats out, roads turning into rivers. There seems to be a complete infrastructure collapse as well, but what, in your opinion, is causing this series of and the frequency of these, weather events that very intense weather events we're seeing?
Akira, if you go through the latest IPCC report, the Assessment Period 6 report, it clearly states that the new normal would be life between disasters. There is going to be a new normal. So there can be no life without disasters. So now we have to focus more on mitigation is important, the carbon emission mitigation is important. Right. At the same time, the adaptation and resilience are very, very important things that the government of India and the other state governments should, prepare for this. Western countries, they are declaring, floodplains to the tune that, they are seeing extreme events for the past 500 years and saying whichever area that has got breached on the sides of the rivers, those are being declared as floodplains. So all the buildings, encroachments or whatever it is are being removed from those places. So I think now we'll have a rainfall, once what we saw as a once in a 500-year event is now becoming once in a 10-year event. And when we cross this 1.5 degree and reach up to 2 degrees Celsius, I think that will become a yearly event. So we have to get prepared for the worst, even, something medium comes across, that will be fine. So I think we have to now more focus on adaptation, resilience issues, reclaiming the floodplains of our rivers, building stormwater drains which will be capable of carrying some 15 centimeters rainfall in an hour or so. So those kind of things have to be really worked on. And also the resilience things. How fast we can come back post a disaster? Right. How are we able to come back post a disaster? How soon we are able to come back from a disaster? I think this is going to be the new normal, or that they clearly said, the IPCC report, the recent report clearly said, anybody who was born in the last 438 months, any child who was born in the last 438 months, that is after February 1986, they have not seen a normal month in their lifetime. Wow. Whatever they have seen is the temperature has rise over the previous year. So we have to get all the three things are important: mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. These are three things that we need to focus upon.
Well, I have to say I almost don't have words because you put it together so succinctly there. It really is about life between disasters, as you point out. Now, Mahesh Palawat, is that something that you're seeing in terms of, when you're forecasting as well, that the frequency of these extreme weather events is just, becoming, the gaps between them becoming shorter and shorter as the months progress?
Yes. Now we are witnessing that intensity as well as frequency of such intense weather system is increasing year by year, and the heavy rainfall, or you can say extreme weather events, which were around 2 to 3 in whole monsoon between June to September in southwest monsoon, or in northeast monsoon October to December, there were around 2 to 3 intense weather spells. Now we are witnessing that 3 to 4 intense weather events been in a month, and now between 6th and 11th of November we have seen heavy to very heavy downpour over Chennai and adjoining areas. Now this another spell is going to take place, and by 4th of December another depression or low pressure area will form over Bay of Bengal, which will again head towards coastal areas of Tamil Nadu, including southern parts of coastal Andhra Pradesh. Then again there will be flooding over these areas. So this is becoming a very frequent weather event, and this is due to, we can attribute this to climate change, and air temperatures are increasing, so capacity of air is also increasing to hold the moisture, which is creating a huge, or you can say vertically developed clouds, which are capable of giving heavy downpour within a span of 2 to 3 hours. Yeah.
So, Mr. Sundararajan, if we are in fact lurching from, one disaster to the next, and it really is life between disasters, what must we do in terms of boosting our disaster management capabilities at this point, if indeed it's going to be this sort of, very dire scenario going ahead as well? Are we doing enough? Are we planning enough?
We have not learned the lessons from this disaster, Sangeeta. This is what I would like to tell. That, we'll have to take there has to be a political will. Like, cities are enough. Cities are already bleeding. And each of our India cities have cross their carrying capacity 2 or 3 times more. Whatever, for example, Chennai's carrying capacity would be about 30 to 40 lakhs. Now we are 1.2 crores. So which means, we have crossed the carrying capacity some 2 or 3 times. So the more cities expand, you are bound to encroach upon water bodies, the catchment areas, the floodplains of rivers. So the first step we have to do is decentralize it. We should advocate decentralization not only in political parts, but also on the development issue. So, cities should be decongested. Cities should not be allowed to grow more than what we are today. We have to build infrastructure at the Tier 2 cities or Tier 3 towns. We have to build infrastructure in villages. So, you don't get people at one place and, have this deluge once in 6 months' time or once in 3 months' time. So, that is the primary thing. Cities have to be stopped. The growth of cities has to be stopped. Let us accept the fact that, our life has to live with this disaster. Even if you contain within 1.5, you are going to see more disasters. There is no respite. There is no relief for us, for humans, for whatever we have done in the last 120 years. So we have to accept the fact that yes, our life hereafter is going to be amongst disasters. And I would also like to advocate one thing: there is no more question of environment versus development. It's no more. The question in front of us is survival versus extinction. Are we going to survive this, or are we going to become extinct? Because everybody is saying the current emission scenario, we will easily cross 5 degrees by the end of the century. So where do we leave this world to the next generation? So I think the primary factor now, above your economic growth, above your GDP, above your GST, whatever it is. So environment should be, our climate change should be the primary focus, and it's the most important challenge of our lifetime and for the humanity as a whole.
Mr. Sundararajan, you clearly don't pull your punches. Thank you both, Mahesh Palawat and G. Sundararajan, for joining us on this on the show this morning. A very dire and grim picture being painted over there, a question of survival versus extinction, where development perhaps now needs to be rethought in a way where we have a planet to give to the next generation. One comprehensive bill to repeal the 3 contentious farm laws is now being prepared by the government and awaiting approval from the Prime Minister's office. This is what sources have told NDTV. The Agriculture Ministry is also working on whether the MSP issue could be addressed simply as guidelines or in some kind of statutory form. Meanwhile, thousands of farmers held a rally in Lucknow days after the Prime Minister announced the government's intention to roll back these contentious laws. While a decision on the future of the protests will be taken by top farmer leaders this week, those who attended that rally were unanimous in talking about many more demands.
Thousands of farmers at this Lucknow Mahapanchayat, organized by the Sanyukt Kisan Morcha, days after Prime Minister Modi's farm laws repeal announcement, with only one resolve. Farmers from across Uttar Pradesh, Haryana and Punjab came to the Lucknow Mahapanchayat while no decision on the future of the movement was taken. At the same time, the presence of so many people here in Uttar Pradesh's capital definitely sent out a message to the government that the farmers' protest is still very much on. A decision on the protest is likely this Saturday when all top farmer leaders meet. But in Lucknow, they asked that other demands be met, including a law that guarantees MSP or a fair price for produce. An action against MOS home Ajay Mishra, whose son is accused of the murder of farmers in UP's Lakhimpur.
MSP का सवाल है, कानूनी गारंटी उसको मिल जाए। इसमें ना छोटा किसान है ना बड़ा, किसने 10 क्विंटल पैदा करा, किसने 100 क्विंटल पैदा करा, उसका लाभ सीधा उसी को मिलेगा।
Top BJP leaders were 300 kilometers away from Lucknow in Gorakhpur, CM Adityanath's home turf, where party chief JP Nadda addressed booth-level workers, pitching the Modi government as farmer-friendly.
किसान आंदोलन की बात करते हैं और किसान के बारे में बात करते हैं। मित्रों, बहुत से किसान नेता के नाम पर जाने गए, लेकिन जो काम किसान के लिए किया, वह काम मोदी जी के बराबर का किसी किसान नेता ने नहीं किया। इस बात को भी हमको समझना चाहिए।
But other top UP BJP leaders like Unnao MP Sakshi Maharaj threw jibes at farmer leaders.
बिल तो बनते रहते हैं, बिगड़ते रहते हैं, वापस आ जाएंगे, दोबारा बन जाएंगे, कोई देर नहीं लगती है। मोदी जी का हृदय से धन्यवाद करूंगा कि उन्होंने बहुत बड़े मन का, बड़े दिल का परिचय दिया।
Farmers in Lucknow also said they intend to go ahead with the proposed march to Parliament early next week. With Salim Khan in Gorakhpur and camera person Rajesh Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
The other big story, COVID-19 vaccine stocks that are available with states has nearly doubled this month as per government data. The country's top group on immunization is likely to meet this week to discuss giving an additional dose or a third dose to people. Now, the high stock of vaccines could come in very handy for these additional doses. Private hospitals say they have 40 to 50 lakh doses which are set to expire over the next 4 months. Doctors are urging booster shots be administered to the vulnerable, especially the elderly with comorbidities. A decision on children's immunization is also expected in the next 2 weeks.
While the vaccine availability has nearly doubled, the government is still undecided on administering the third dose or the additional dose. The data reveals that the vaccine availability has nearly doubled in the month of November. As per the data, the average vaccine availability in the third week of October was somewhere around 10.85 crore, whereas it has nearly doubled to almost 22 crore in the third week of November. This when the average vaccination rate is somewhere around 65 lakh in the third week of November. This data is very important in the context of rising demand for the additional dose or the booster dose. Government sources have told NDTV that the National Expert Group on COVID vaccination is likely to meet this week, and in this particular meeting, the expert group will discuss the need for additional dose or the third dose. Sources have also added that the committee will discuss the need for administering the additional dose or the third dose for the immunocompromised people. Sources, however, say that any decision on administering the third dose or the additional dose will be purely based on science and will not be based on mere excess availability of vaccines. Sources, however, clarify that the focus as on date remains on vaccinating the adult population as per the target. Sources have also added that the National Technical Advisory Committee is also expected to meet in 2 weeks to formulate and to finalize a comprehensive policy for the additional dose.
Worryingly, the number of senior citizens who are dying of COVID is back to the same percentage as it was during the first wave of the pandemic, a recent study in Mumbai has shown. Now, this doesn't actually mean a spike in the number of deaths. It shows that the share of senior citizens and those with comorbidities has gone up, which means they really cannot let their guard down. Now, at the start of the pandemic, if it was 70.7% in Jan, Feb and March, after vaccination started for the 60 plus, you see a distinct drop in the elderly share in the COVID death toll. But then in September, it starts to rise again. This is 6 months to the first vaccine dose. And in October, it's at a rather high 79.5%.
63-year-old Sharat Chandra Shinoy died of COVID in October in spite of being fully vaccinated. His brother, a practicing senior family physician, says the time to consider booster shots for the elderly has come.
I appeal to the task force also to think for the second booster dose for the COVID vaccination for the comorbid and senior people.
The Mumbai Corporation says that while deaths have gone down significantly amongst all segments of the population, senior citizens still remain more vulnerable. The BMC is consulting the state task force on what can be done to protect senior citizens with comorbidities. Mumbai Corporation says a decision on booster shots will have to come from the centre.
Comorbid status of the persons, senior citizens, that may be added factor for contributing more in terms of more in numbers and more in percentage. We have requested formally to the task force members that they should understand, they should study this thing, and they should come out with some suggestions, some solutions, so that we can put forth before the Government of India and the Government of Maharashtra for coming out with the policies.
Doctors on the state's COVID task force say senior citizens, especially those with comorbidities, will remain highly susceptible to COVID and they will have to strictly follow COVID protocols.
Absolute number of deaths have significantly come down. The percentage of these adult elderly population still remains high, and one of the main reasons for that is the amount of comorbidities they have.
Even though the total amount of case fatalities last reported was about 0.8%, we know that the two biggest group of people who can get infected or at higher risk are the elderly and those people who are obese.
For those who have comorbidities and are on immunosuppressant medicines, remaining vigilant is the only way to stay safe, because experts have made it clear that COVID is here to stay and COVID fatalities in the future is likely to come from this category of citizens. In Mumbai with camera person Praveen Ji Rohit, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Now, South India has been battered by heavy rainfall and unprecedented flooding over the last few days. And now we've seen a heavy rain alert now being sounded along the Tamil Nadu coast. Right now, however, despite those earlier visuals that we saw of massive flooding across South India, Chennai this morning is seeing a bit of a respite with the sun out, but that could be short-lived as the Met Department is again forecasting very heavy rainfall from the 24th onwards. Sam Daniel joining us at this point with the latest on that situation in Chennai. Sam, tell us what's expected.
Well, the Met forecast is citing the upper circulation, which could lead to a possible low pressure, and if it intensifies, a depression perhaps, Ankita, and this would mean Tamil Nadu coast could get or receive heavy to very heavy rainfall over the next 3 days, particularly on the 25th and 26th. And if that happens, that will be the fourth spell of rain this monsoon season. It's not unusual. Tamil Nadu gets its major rainfall this season, but it's the quantum that has made it unusual this time. And already the state has received more than 65% of normal rainfall. And talking about Chennai, it has received 66% of more rainfall than the average. To be specific, 90.6 millimeters against 54.5 centimeters, all in centimeters actually. And already the state has witnessed huge crop damage in terms of 50,000 acres. The major reservoirs have been filled to capacity, including the Stanley Reservoir in Mettur in Salem district and also another one in Kanyakumari. 3 parts of Tamil Nadu have received very heavy rainfall, have witnessed flooding. One is the northern part of Chennai, including Chennai and districts like Kadalur and Viluppuram. In south, districts like Kanyakumari and Tuticorin very severely battered. And also the delta region, the central part of Tamil Nadu, received very heavy rainfall. And in that sense, the state does not require much rainfall, and all would be hoping and praying that the rain will not be severe. But of course, the state government says it is fully prepared, that Chennai Corporation, for instance, will replicate the same model of activating more than 600 plus heavy-duty pumps in all the low-lying pockets. The worry is, of course, the heavy discharge also from neighbouring Andhra Pradesh, for instance, from Chittoor over the weekend, which led to flooding in northern pockets of Chennai. Certain areas in Chennai are called as the chronic inundation hotspots. Of course, that's a major worry, because even if there's slight rainfall, that could lead to inundation. If it's very heavy, it could be kind of a major damage. But authorities say, in terms of preparedness, they're ready. But we should wait and watch whether this would fizzle out, or would it really turn into a low pressure and then a depression. Ankita.
All right. Thanks very much indeed for that update. So there might be temporary respite, but Tamil Nadu really gearing up once again for a great deal of rainfall. Let's move on for the moment, change tracks to some other news coming in from Uttar Pradesh, from Madhya Pradesh, where the Indian Railways has withdrawn the saffron uniform of its serving staff on board the Ramayan special trains. This follows objections from religious leaders to their wearing an all saffron garb that is meant to be reserved only for those in holy orders. The changed uniform, which you now see on the right of your screen, still incorporates some elements of saffron in it, but is more recognizably a uniform. Time now for an interview with SpiceJet's CMD Ajay Singh. NDTV's Vishnu Shom spoke to him about how safe the Boeing 737 MAX was and a host of other issues.
For the first time in a couple of years, we are seeing the real re-emergence of the Indian civil aviation sector. Demand, which has perhaps been pent up for the last couple of years because of the COVID situation, is now being realized through some decent growth. But the challenges that the aviation sector has actually faced in India, quite remarkable. One of the airlines which has really had a tough time over the last few years, but is looking to actually expand considerably, is SpiceJet. And we have a wonderful guest with us, the CMD of SpiceJet, Mr. Ajay Singh. Thanks very much for being with us. It's lovely always to sort of talk about aviation. Now, we are in the cockpit of a Boeing 737 MAX. This was an aircraft which you wanted to see flying in India a while back. It hasn't happened because of safety concerns. Is that now entirely resolved?
I think those concerns are more than resolved. As you know, we received delivery of this aircraft about 3 years ago. We flew them for 6 months, absolutely without incident. There was an incident with an Ethiopian aircraft, and since then the MAX has been grounded. It's gone through the greatest scrutiny since of any aircraft in history. Regulators have taken more than 2 years to look at every little piece of this aircraft and ensure that it is today the safest aircraft in the world. It's flying, the MAX is now flying in the United States for the last year or so. It's been flying in Europe, it's been flying in the Middle East, it's been flying in South America and Australia. So it is being widely used, it's flying without incident. SpiceJet started to fly this aircraft 2 days ago. And so far with all the flights that we have flown, there's not even been a minor issue. It's flying completely smoothly. It flew completely smoothly for SpiceJet when we were flying it and continues to do so. The changes have been made as required by the regulators, and it is now the safest airline in the global skies.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the changes, because the regulator required a few things. There were some software modifications. There was additional training of your crew, your engineers and your pilots. So it's been a process for you, right?
Yes, I think primarily it was a software modification that allowed, there was a stabilizing mechanism in the aircraft which essentially pushed the nose up. Every time the nose went down, the software would push it back up and make it even. And there was a glitch in that software which has now been rectified, tested for like a few 100,000 hours of flying. And it's working fine. As far as the training is concerned, it was just a 2-hour module that pilots were required to go through just to familiarize them with that software change. So that's been done. It should not have taken so long for the aircraft to start flying again. This has been the longest grounding in aviation history. But because I think regulators around the world wanted to be really extra careful and extra vigilant, they've done this. And as a consequence of that, of course, airlines like SpiceJet came under a lot of pressure, but we are glad that so many precautions have been taken that this is now such a safe aircraft.
You've invested a lot in Boeing, $22 billion, 205 aircraft, 13 you've received, 155 firm orders, 50 optional orders. So you are banking on the MAX aircraft for several reasons. One of them is the economy that the aircraft affords. How important is that, particularly in the Indian context where fuel prices are high, variable expenses are very variable? So in terms of the cost factor, why is this aircraft important?
I think for the exact same reason that you just mentioned. In India, fuel prices are amongst the highest in the world. Firstly, the fuel prices themselves globally are high. On top of that, India has the highest taxes on fuel in terms of the VAT that is imposed by certain states, which can be as high as 30%, and the excise duty, which is 11%. So, it's incredibly important to have a fuel efficient aircraft. The MAX is 20% more fuel efficient than our older aircraft, the NG. So that is incredibly important. The fact that the engineering costs, because this is much better design of aircraft, so engineering costs are a lot lower for us with this aircraft. So those are the two primary costs in aviation, the fuel and the engineering, therefore economically much better aircraft for us. For passengers, it's a much nicer aircraft as well, because the noise levels are like 40% lower than the old aircraft. It's a nice quiet aircraft. It has wonderful seat pitch. You get much more leg room, and you're a tall person and you just sat in those seats, and you can see that because it's a longer aircraft, and therefore the pitch, the space that you have for your legs is much more. And I think interestingly, this aircraft will also have broadband internet on board by the end of this year.
So that's interesting, because people would want to see that. You'd be able to access your net, is that a cost or to the passenger, or how is it?
Well, at this to start with, it's going to be free. We are going to make sure that people are able to access the net fully and properly in broadband mode. We probably won't allow calls to be made, because that will be disturbing for other passengers. But pretty much everything else
But that's something you're going to have to deal with eventually, right? People will, as we progress, want to make phone calls as well.
They will want to make phone calls, and we'll see in the future what happens. But initially the thought is that we disable the voice calling, but allow you to of course work on your email or use your WhatsApp, watch your news, watch NDTV.com, and so it's going to be a unique experience for passengers. And I think internet is so much a part of our life. You can barely go a few minutes without looking at your phone, and of course some people might say that's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's not, but it's a service we want to give, and then you can use it. So we will continue to innovate in terms of the services we provide, the conveniences we provide to people, and lots of new technology that we are building into this aircraft. I think people will enjoy that.
So the other thing that you focused on was Air India. Now that didn't work out for you. Are you disappointed it didn't, or were you in a sense already stretched with SpiceJet and the condition of the aviation sector?
Well, I was disappointed. Of course, I was disappointed. I was very stretched with SpiceJet, but this is the kind of challenge that you get once in your lifetime. And I thought that what's the point of being in the aviation space if you're not prepared to take on the largest challenge that exists? So I was very disappointed. I put in a 15,100 crore bid. So it was a serious bid that we put for Air India. But I'm also extremely happy that, the disinvestment finally went through. Yep. I think great credit to the government of India for being flexible with this disinvestment. And I think Tata's is a fantastic partner for Air India. It was their company. They have the wherewithal and the resources to rebuild the brand of Air India. Air India as a brand belongs to all of us as Indians. Yep. And we all pray for them, and I wish them the very best. I hope that they revive this brand and they make it a brand that all of us can be proud of. This is a global brand. It needs to be. This is India. Yeah. We need to make sure that we are the best.
So just one or two more questions. Firstly, 50 optional aircraft, they may or may not be MAX. So does that mean you're looking at a larger aircraft? And if so, would that be for international routes?
Look, I would never say never to anything at all. SpiceJet has always shown that it's going to take advantage of opportunity and innovate. So we'll see. I think the government has been pushing all of us really hard to fly long haul. I think it's time that India stopped exporting all its passengers into the Gulf airports and having the Gulf airlines distribute them throughout the world. Sure. There's been this joke that actually Dubai is our main airport and Emirates is our national airline. Yeah. So I mean that needs to change. I think this government is very focused on changing that. India is so wonderfully placed geographically, both for passengers and for cargo. Right. That we are both a producing nation and a consuming nation, and we sit in the middle of the producing and consuming nations of the world. So we need to be an important hub both for passengers and for cargo. We have a fantastic, really unique opportunity. But to make this a reality, I think government and industry and regulator and everybody needs to work together. Sure.
One final question. As you can imagine, a lot of people in the airline sector, including in your airline, your workers, were upset. Salaries were not what they were. There were salary cuts. Is there any message to them? Will they get their salaries back? And
firstly, all the salary cuts have been restored. All the employees are being paid in full for the last 2 or 3 months. We had a choice, Vishnu. When COVID hit us, there were no flights. So we had a choice of either retrenching a lot of people or saying, okay, we have a certain amount of money that we get from our charter revenue and from cargo and so on and so forth. And we will distribute this money we will not retrench anybody, but we will distribute this money. And so therefore we will pay less. We chose that option instead of retrenching because if we had retrenched people, they really had no other jobs to get. Now things are normalizing, and so some and very few people at SpiceJet have protested and said, look, pay us what you reduced at that point of time. Well, it was a choice we made. We could have retrenched. So we made that choice. I think by and large, and a vast majority of SpiceJet employees were very happy that we didn't just remove them. Right? Now we are in a position where we are paying them in full. We are hiring more people as the MAX comes back, as aircrafts increase and so on and so forth. But we decided that this collective pain, and I took zero salary, zero, absolutely nothing. The heads of department took vastly reduced salaries. All of that has now been restored, and we restored our salaries last, after we had restored everybody else's. So that's our philosophy. We will continue to stand by our people. There will be some, not everybody will agree with what we are doing, but we think that was the best way.
It's been wonderful speaking to you, and congratulations. It's You know, it seems that it's a new dawn for Indian aviation now with this post-COVID scenario happening. I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much for being with us. Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir.
Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal said on Monday that 1,000 rupees per month would be transferred into the accounts of every woman in Punjab if his party was voted into power. Along with several other poll promises, he launched an attack on the current Punjab Chief Minister, calling him a fake Kejriwal.
ईमानदारी दी मिसाल अरविंद केजरीवाल जी ਨੂੰ मैं स्टेज उत्ते सदा दिंदी है।
The Delhi Chief Minister launched his Punjab campaign banking on his name.
केजरीवाल जो कहता है वो करता है, मैं हवा में बात नहीं करता।
He has already promised up to 300 units of free electricity, 24-hour running water supply and free medicines alongside free medical treatment. The Aam Aadmi Party chief announced what he called Kejriwal's 3 guarantees for women and attacked the chief minister for copying him.
18 साल से ऊपर की हर महिला को हर महीने 1,000 रुपए उसके अकाउंट में हम डलवाया करेंगे। एक बेटी है, एक बहू है, एक सास है, तो तीनों के अकाउंट में 1,000 रुपए आएंगे। मैंने कहा कि हमारी सरकार बनेगी, हम 15,000 मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाएंगे। हमने दिल्ली में भी मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाए। उस नकली केजरीवाल ने कहा मैं भी मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाऊंगा।
Both chief ministers reached out to the auto rickshaw unions on the same day, just hours apart.
पहला रिक्शे ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, मेरे बापू ਦਾ भी टेंट स्टोर ਸੀ, ਅਸੀਂ रिक्शा मैं बड़ा चलाया। ਅੱਜ तक जिंदे ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਚਲਾਨ ਹੋਏ ਵੇ ਹੈ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ 50,000 ਕਰਿਆ ਵਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ 20,000 ਕਰਿਆ ਵਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ 10,000 ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਲੀਕ ਮਾਰਤੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਪਰ।
The Malwa region holds a politically significant place in Punjab politics with 69 out of the 117 seats. The Aam Aadmi Party too boasts of a strong presence here. In Ludhiana with Ashwini Mehra, Shanakshi Chakravarti, NDTV.
Arvind Kejriwal and his party colleagues also had dinner at an auto driver's house in Punjab. Kejriwal's outreach to auto drivers has been a big winning strategy for the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. Well, in Punjab, he told his audience, "I'm like your brother, come to me for anything, even if your auto breaks down."
सर एक चीज़ पूछना चाहूँगा, आप पंजाब के दौरे पर हैं, मुख्यमंत्री हैं पंजाब के, वो ये कह रहे हैं जो आपने योजना लॉन्च करी है महिलाओं के लिए, वो कह रहे हैं कि महिलाएं जो हैं वो अपना हक चाहती हैं जो कांग्रेस उनको दिलवा रही है, वो मुफ्त की चीज़ें नहीं चाहती हैं, वो ये कह रहे हैं।
अगर उन्होंने ऐसा कहा है तो ये दुख की बात है। मैंने क्या बोला है, मैंने ये बोला है कि हमारी सरकार बनेगी तो हर महिला को 18 साल से ऊपर की हर महिला को हर महीने 1,000 रुपए उसके अकाउंट में डलवाएंगे। तो वो इसका क्यों विरोध कर रहे हैं? उन्हें तो खुश होना चाहिए।
इससे पहले ही वो बात बोल रहे हैं, मतलब इस पर्टिकुलर इस पे नहीं।
सारी महिलाएं हैं, आप सबसे पूछ लीजिए। आज मैंने देखा टीवी चैनल सड़क पे महिलाओं से पूछ रहे थे, सारी महिलाएं इतनी खुश हैं कि भाई चलो हमें 1,000 रुपए महीना मिल जाएंगे। अब जैसे कोई गृहिणी होती है, यही गृहिणी है, अगर इनको 1,000 रुपए महीना मिलेगा तो ये अपने लिए 100 चीजें ला सकती है, बच्चों के लिए कुछ ला सकती है। एक कॉलेज जाने वाली बच्ची है, उसको उसकी कॉलेज की शिक्षा अच्छी मिल सकती है अगर 1,000 रुपए महीना मिलेगा। तो इसका तो स्वागत करना चाहिए। वो पता नहीं क्यों विरोध कर रहे हैं, कांग्रेस क्यों विरोध कर रही है, अकाली दल क्यों विरोध कर रहा है।
गेम चेंजर हो सकता है आपकी ये योजना जो है, उसके पैसा बहुत चाहिएगा। मैं देख रहा था करीब 1,000 करोड़ में लगता है एक महीने का चाहिए होगा।
मेरा अपना अनुमान है 8 से 10,000 करोड़ के करीब जरूरत पड़ेगी। और पंजाब का बजट 2 लाख करोड़ रुपए के करीब है। इतना तो हम अपनी बहनों को दे ही सकते हैं।